Foundations is the newest set in Magic the Gathering, and I'm going to be tier listing the new spells in every single color from the set. There's about 130 of them, 29 in white, which we'll start with today, starting with the commons. If you're interested in learning more about what these tiers mean, go ahead and take a look in the description, and while you're down there, hit that subscribe button. Today's video is brought to you by Deck Dwell Deck Boxes. You saw the thick, durable shell on the outside right at the beginning, and inside there's a whole lot of space. It's sleek, it's modern, it's Deck Dwell. And one of the coolest things about it is this neat little dice chamber you have on both sides, where you have this little slot thing and you can put all your dice in there, pull it out, take them all out. It's super easy to use, it's super unique, it's really cool. I have a bunch of different dice that I like to use, so those are perfect for me. Look at me just throwing them back in there. That's pretty cool. Throwing them back in there. Nice job, hands. And like any good deck box, you see your commander or whatever card you want on the outside there with the little slot in. This is two 100 card decks, fully sleeved with the little token slot. As a little bit of a reference, this is two standard decks with both sideboards. You got the tokens in there. This can hold up to 160 double sleeved cards. It's super easy to use, super functional. It comes in blue and it comes in red. This is awesome. Click the link below and use the promo code you see on the screen this whole time. That'll get you 15% off these Deck Dwell deck boxes. Now back to the video. Starting off, we've got Fleeting Flight. It's a single white instant. Put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature. It gains flying until the end of the turn. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to it this turn. This is a classic combat trick that you're seeing. It's used in limited. Sometimes these are good, sometimes they're bad. In Commander, I'm not really interested in having these effects in really any deck. Besides like the most niche, this one is going to be a hard no. Hinterland Sanctifier is a 1 white creature, rabbit cleric. Whenever another creature you control enters, you gain 1 life, and it's a 1/2. This is going to be good in your life gain decks. This will be good in token decks. 2 toughness on this 1 mana creature is pretty cool. Rabbits have gotten a lot more support recently. They're pretty token heavy, so that feels pretty natural. Clerics like to heal. This card is pretty cool. It's only going to go in a few different decks, so I'm going to put that one in Fringe. Heir Apparent is next. It's a 1 white creature, rabbit noble. When this creature enters, create a number of 1/1 white creature rabbit tokens equal to the number of other creatures you control named Heir Apparent. A deck can have any number of cards named Heir Apparent, and it's a 2/2. It's interesting they had another one of these effects in white because they just printed the Templar Knights in Assassin's Creed. That being said, this is a much cooler effect, I think. You can just totally take over a game with all sorts of token spam. There's another card we'll be talking about later, which is perfect for this. I'm a big fan of it. I'm going to put this one in the nice category. Helpful Hunter is next. It's a 1 white creature cat. When this creature enters, draw a card, and it's a 1/1. It's nice when a creature can enter and replace itself, but that's really not the most impactful thing that you're doing in Commander. You would really need this to be in a cat deck or in a blink deck, and even still in both of those, it's kind of borderline there. So I'm going to put this in Jank. Dazzling Angel is a 2 white creature angel with flying. Whenever another creature you control enters, you gain 1 life, and it's a 2/3. This is the same effect as we saw earlier with a larger mana investment, but you also get an evasive body that's a little bit bigger, so that's cool. You're not spamming out angels usually. So in that type, it's maybe not the best fit. It's still okay. I think it will go just fine in one of those lists. I'm going to put this one in Jank. Inspiring Paladin is a 2 white creature human knight. During your turn, this creature has first strike. During your turn, creatures you control with a +1/+1 counter on them have first strike. And it's a 3/3. This one is the flavor win for me for sure. I think the +1/+1 counters are basically horses, acting as the huge cavalry charge coming in. I think it's a nice payoff for the +1/+1 counter decks as well. It really makes for some awkward blocks that are just going to clear out some creatures on your opponent's side, or just get damage through because they can't risk those pieces going down. It really only does pop off in those +1/+1 counter decks though, so I'm gonna put this one in Fringe. Prideful Parent is a 2 and a white creature cat with vigilance. When this creature enters, create a 1/1 white cat creature token, and this is a 2/2. So I have to mention the Mufasa and Simba vibes exuding from this card, and for that alone, I love it so much. But if I take off my Lion King fanboy glasses, this is just a pretty classic 2 bodies for 1 spell that you see in a lot of limited sets. These don't usually translate all that well to Commander, but specifically in a cat deck, maybe on a Fringes of a different kind of token deck, this can make the cut. I'm going to put this in Jank. Felidar Savior is a 3 and a white creature cat beast with lifelink. When this creature enters, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 other target creatures you control, and it's a 2/3. This one strikes me as a blink deck target, and cats obviously +1/+1 counters are in there. There's a lot going on, but to maximize the value, you need 2 other creatures on the battlefield, which is a little bit of a tough ask. The body itself isn't that big. The lifelink is cool. I just don't think it's doing enough. It's too conditional. I'm gonna put this in Jank. Squad Railier is a 3 and a white creature human scout. For 2 and a white, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card with power 2 or less from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order, and it's a 3/4. A 4-mana spell with those stats is not very good. It needs a lot of help with the ability, and I'm not the biggest fan of this ability. You really have to have a deck that's just flooded with this specific exact kind of creature, and even then, you're still gonna miss sometimes. This one is going to be a hard no for me. Vanguard Seraph is a 3 and a white creature angel warrior with flying. Whenever you gain life for the first time each turn, surveil 1, and it's a 3/3. I like that this triggers at least 1 time on every turn if you can get your life gain going every turn. Surveilling is a pretty unique mechanic in white, and I think it's a super helpful mechanic. I think if you're in a life gain deck, this creature is going to be pretty good to smooth out your draws. I'm going to put this one in Fringe. Armasaur Guide is a 4 and a white creature dinosaur with vigilance. Whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, and it's a 4/4. This creature doesn't really have the stats to go in many commander decks. The trigger is also asking a lot to give you a very little payoff. This one just seems like a no-go. I don't even really like it as a last add into a dinosaur deck that you're just brewing at home. Hard no for me. Luminous Rebuke is a 4 and a white instant spell. This spell costs 3 less to cast if it targets a tapped creature. Destroy target creature. This is an effect we see fairly often in limited formats these days. It's really not that exciting. It's conditional. Instant speed is nice. There's just going to be so many better options for you. This is a hard no. Divine Resilience is a 1 white instant with kicker 2 and a white. Target creature you control gains indestructible until end of turn. If this spell is kicked, instead, any number of target creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. This is a kind of spell that I'm liking more and more and more these days. A 1-mana investment to keep your commander on the board is really not that bad. It doesn't have hexproof, which is kind of a bummer, but the ability to kick it to protect your board state if you're in a commanding position already is pretty sweet. I'm gonna put this in Chase because I think this can really go in any white deck, and I think you're gonna be pretty happy about it. Joust Through is a 1 white instant that deals 3 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. You gain 1 life. This is another removal spell we see in some form or fashion in limited formats that perform well sometimes and not so well other times. It's just not that good of a removal option in Commander. It's super restricted. This is a hard no. Dawnwing Marshal is a 1 and a white creature cat soldier with flying. For 4 and a white, creatures you control get +1/+1 until the end of the turn, and it's a 2/2. It's cool to see a flying cat. Usually they just jump very high, but this one figured out the formula. Congratulations. For Commander, I don't think this really has a lot of power. It's really just too small ball on every front. The power and toughness. The 4 and a white is too much for just a +1/+1 boost. I'm gonna put this as a hard no. Sunblessed Healer is a 1 and a white creature human cleric. It has a kicker cost of of 1 and a white. It has lifelink, and when this creature enters, if it was kicked, return target non-land permanent card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to your battlefield, and it's a 3/1. This is a fine play early as a 3 power creature. You can maybe get some life back from it by attacking, and the kicker cost is really cool. It specifies non-land permanent, so you can get a stack piece back, you can get your soul ring back. There's a lot of value that you can find from it, so I'm gonna put this in nice. Cat Collector is a 2 and a white creature, human citizen. When this creature enters, create a food token. Whenever you gain life for the first time during each of your turns, create a 1/1 white cat creature token, and it's a 3/2. Getting 2 pieces of cardboard with a single spell is always worth keeping an eye on, with upside of having 3, 4, 5, depending on how much life you're gaining throughout the game. There's plenty of support for that strategy. Food has plenty of support these days. Cats are pretty cool. I like this spell. I think this can go in a number of different decks as decent option. I'm gonna give it a Fringe rating. Dauntless Veteran is a 1 and 2 white creature human soldier. Whenever this creature attacks, creatures you control get +1/+1 until the end of the turn, and it's a 2/2. This has relevant creature types, which I think is its biggest selling point with human and soldier, because really it's also just small ball like the Dawnwind Marshal I was just talking about. 2/2 is a small body. You need to wait a whole turn to just get a +1/+1 boost when this attacks, and hopefully it doesn't die, but it probably will. I'm not super into this. I think it's a fine first start, kind of an added thing in one of these type decks. I'm gonna put this in Jank. Twinblade Blessing is a 1 and 2 white enchantment aura with flash. You enchant a creature, and the enchanted creature has double strike. Just like any combat trick, you are liable to get totally wrecked if your creature gets bounced or destroyed or exiled, but giving a creature double strike at instant speed is pretty spooky, and I don't know how frequently you can do that in white. I think if you're doing a Voltron thing, if you're doing an enchantment thing, aura thing, this is certainly worth considering. It's also kind of interesting as a one-off alternate win condition if you have a big commander that can potentially win with commander damage. I'm gonna put this in Fringe for now because it definitely is a little bit restrictive. It's a pretty risky play, but I kinda like it. Claws Out is a 3 and 2 white instant spell. This spell costs 1 less to cast. For each cat you control, creatures you control get +2/+2 until the end of the turn. This belongs in only cat decks, and even in those decks, I'm not super sure you want it. It kind of depends on how wide your plan is. It's not a 0 by any means, but it's super restricted to those kind of decks. I'm gonna put it in Jank. Guarded Heir is a 5 and a white creature human noble with lifelink. When this creature enters, create 2 3/3 white knight creature tokens, and it's a 1/1. This is another flavor when you have the one little human noble being surrounded by the 3/3 knights on either side. In terms of gameplay, it is cool to get 3 permanents entering. If you have a lot of creatures entering stuff, that's pretty big. If you're doing token doubling or tripling with Mondrak or O'Hare Talk, this could get there as well. It's just a pretty steep mana cost, despite getting 3 permanents. It's not like totally unplayable though, so I'm gonna throw it in Jank. Crystal Barricade is a 1 and a white artifact creature, wall with defender. You have hexproof, prevent all non-combat damage that would be dealt to other creatures you control, and it's a 0/4. This has some pretty interesting lines of text. You having hexproof is pretty cool. You can't get burned out by a comet storm. You can't get brain frozen out of existence. It's a pretty good line of defense at a pretty low investment of 2 mana. It also prevents that non-combat damage, so blasphemous acts are not gonna work against you. Any other sort of burn effect. The Pyroclasm just got reprinted. I don't really see it all that much in Commander, but you get the point. I think it's gonna be especially good in your local meta, your pod meta, your LGS meta, if somebody is running one of these target player spells. But I think this is pretty good to just throw in a lot of different white decks as a layer of protection. I'm gonna put this in nice. Sky Knight Squire is a 1 and a white creature, cat scout. Whenever another creature you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. As long as this creature has 3 or more +1/+1 counters on it, it has flying and is a knight in addition to its other types, and it's a 1/1. I love 2 mana creatures that eventually become a must answer threat. The big thing about this creature is that it does not specify between token and non-token creatures entering the battlefield to get the counters. That means you can spam the board with them, turn this into a 20-20, a 40-40, however many creatures you can get, have it be flying, blow somebody up, have somebody use a removal spell on it so they're not using it on your commander. This is really cool. I think it's going to be strong in a lot of the go wide strategies. It's nice. Arabo, the First Fang, is a legendary creature, cat avatar. Other cats you control get +1/+1. Whenever Arabo or another non-token cat you control enters, create a 1/1 white cat creature token, and it's a 2/2. This is another very good kitty, and if you believe the flavor text, the very first good kitty. This just demands being in a cat deck. It's going to be really good for it. Lord effects are awesome. You're creating tokens as you play your cats out normally. This is like the definition of what Fringe means in this breakdown. Celestial Armor is a 2 and a white artifact equipment with flash. When this equipment enters, attach it to a target creature you control. That creature gains hexproof and indestructible until the end of the turn. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has flying. Equip for 3 and a white. Holding up 3 mana as a protection spell in any old deck is not really where you want to be, but holding up 3 mana in a Voltron deck or an equipment deck where you have those themes already going is not too big of an ask. I like this especially because it gives the power boost and gives the evasion of flying, making that threat a little bit more lethal with that evasive keyword. You're probably not going to want this in most decks, but in the decks that it will work in, I think it's going to be pretty great. It'll be Fringe for me. Exemplar of Light is a 2 and 2 white creature angel with flying. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Whenever you put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on this creature, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn, and it's a 3/3. This is the second creature in white that goes burr if you're doing the thing, in this case, gaining life. This turns into a massive threat because it gains that counter every instance you gain a life. But the really cool thing is that you don't need to gain life to draw the cards. You need to put a +1/+1 counter on the creature to draw cards. So you don't even need to have that element in your deck at all. You just need the counter element. For that reason, I like it a whole lot. You can lean into either one of these strategies. It's going to work out either way. If you are doing the gain life thing, this turns into a massive threat. I'm going to put this one as nice. Raise the Past is a 2 and 2 white sorcery. Return all creature cards with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is the spell I was referencing earlier when talking about Heir Apparent, because it combos so nicely with it. They're all mana value 2 or less, so they'd all return to the battlefield, they'd all see each other and swarm the battlefield with tokens. It's most certainly a build around kind of effect though. You need to have a bunch of creatures that are mana value 2 or less, and that's a pretty big deck building restriction, but it is a really cool effect. I'm going to put this in Fringe. Valkyrie's Call is a 3 and 2 white enchantment. Whenever a non-token, non-angel creature you control dies, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it. It has flying and is an angel in addition to its other types. This is got to be the chase card, at least in white. This thing is pretty nutty. You have your creatures die and they just come back stronger. This can probably just be fine in any deck that has any number of creatures in it. Probably not going to want it in your Angels deck, but this is awesome. This is a chase card. Herald of Eternal Dawn is a 4 and 3 white creature angel with flash and flying. You can't lose the game and your opponents can't win the game, and it's a 6/6. This is really gonna destroy somebody the first time you see it. Might be a little bit salty, but it's all in good fun. This effect is obviously really strong. It's nice that it has flash. You can give yourself a nice crackback opportunity to close out the game. The silver lining for all of the people that are playing against this angel is that I really can't think of a more telegraphed play than leaving up 7 mana in your Angels deck. They're probably holding on to Herald of the Eternal Dawn, so you could probably play accordingly. Or maybe they're bluffing and you should go all out. That's up to you. This is for sure a chase card. That wraps up the tier list for white. I'm going to be going through blue, I'm going through black and red and green. Gonna touch on all the multicolor spells, the colorless spells. Please hit that subscribe button, like the video if you liked the video. Let me know in the comments where I was dead wrong. Let me know in the comments where I was dead right. I'll see you next time for some more monkeying around.